Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Lagging fermentation, whole cone dry hopping, repairing a valve on a gas manifold, and using sanke kegs for your homebrewed beer. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 263. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Tarleson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com over there, Mr. Todd Burns. Todd, let me kill the music quick. What was that look? What was that look? Is it not coming through on y'all's end? Was that what it was?
Well, for a while there, you were breaking up totally, but I'm okay now. Hey, I'm going to give a little hint to people that want to submit a question.
Yeah,
it's more likely that we'll take the question if you call it in and do a voice.
Well, you're saying that as I do a full show with no voicemail. Just so you know.
That's why I'm saying it, because I like it when people call in. We want to hear people's voices. We like to hear your voices.
I did have the option.
Please call it in.
There are voicemails in our bank. I didn't take them, so it's kind of my fault too. So
I apologize. I did not realize that Josh was going against my wishes again. So my apologies.
I was trying to also draw. Some of these questions are from like mid-December and late November. I wanted to draw from that too, because I used to have a bad habit of letting questions come in my inbox. And then one guy, remember, I think we took his question a full year later. That was the record.
Oh, wow.
That was the record. It didn't help him. I mean, it was useful information. It just didn't help him. So I'm like, I want to try to get the questions in within a month. They submit it, try to get it in within a month is my goal. 6 weeks tops, 9 weeks maybe, 12 weeks. We're talking, but a month. That's my goal. We do have a great show. It's so weird having the music already cut out. I did, because the whole time during the opener, I'm recording locally through a production suite, and I have a board and all this good stuff, but it doesn't affect them. They can talk and hear each other, I think. And Todd's popping up on my screen.
No, we can't talk to each other or hear each other.
Oh, okay. Because mine's so loud. Mine's so loud. But either way, you were obviously talking because Zoom prioritized your bots, and you're like, to me, audio only listeners, I apologize. Yeah, you Todd's doing this.
No.
Yeah. Oh, is that what he was saying? I couldn't tell because he's muted on my end. I muted your channel, but you're like, which
it said we had a very bad internet connection. So
that's why I was
unstable. Your internet is unstable.
It was saying that mine was, or that y'all's is.
No,
ours was. Yeah. So I was afraid that we were going to have problems, but now it seems to be working great.
Yeah, maybe all me pushing so much media onto your ears caused your network. Maybe, I have no idea. I'm bummed out though, because I redid the Imperial ad. I was waiting for the look on your face when you heard it say, "Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club." I fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, you say you did, but I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear the super duper homebrew.
And that's always pops up because I always get the same. I got to fix that look on my face every week,
Yeah.
week to week. YouTube viewers can't see our face during that. They see the actual bumper. I also, if anyone from Imperial is watching this, Chris or Casey or Owen or anybody, I did fix the bumper visually. They had a strain that was formerly known as Sour Batch Kids. And they because of the candy company that makes Sour Patch Kids, I don't know if they actually got a cease and desist or if they were just like, hey, let's get to this before it becomes a problem. But so they've had that removed, that name, for many, many months. Here's me, Smarty Pants, who is a wonderful sponsoring partner with them, or sponsored partner, continued to have Sour Batch Kids all over the video bumper that I had made. So they didn't say anything. I caught on. I was like, oh God, that can't be good for them. Because if anyone came to me and like, hey, that you can't have that, I'd be like, oh, that's Imperial's ad. I don't know anything about that. But I produced it.
We would not do that to you, Imperial.
Of course not. No, because I like to take credit for the things I think are cool. I made that ad. That was all me. I did that. But anyway, we do have a great show. Before we get started, we have some small talk. The January recipe kit, in case you missed it, for our Trub Club recipe receiving members at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour is the Smash the Galaxy single malt, single hop IPA. That's what SMASH stands for. There it is.
Yeah, I brewed it last weekend.
You did brew it. Let's talk about your brew day. What did you think? Like, a 5-gallon batch, I believe, uses 5 ounces. So you were using 15 ounces for your brew day?
17 and a half.
Oh, well, it was 17 and a half gallons, right?
Yeah, but it's 17 and a half ounces.
Oh, okay. So of hops, you scaled everything up for 17 and a half gallons.
No, I just scaled the grain up, but not the hops.
That was a dumb question. I know. I know.
No, actually, to be fair, I haven't used 17 and a half yet because I haven't dry hopped it yet, right?
Right. So that's an additional, I think the dry hopping is 1 ounce per 5 gallon.
Yeah,
I believe. Like yeah. So that's a lot of Galaxy. How did it smell on brew day? I imagine it smelled great.
It smelled great, and it fermented fast. I mean, it really did well. It's actually stopped, and I'm towing right now. So it's funny because we're getting a dry hop question. So you know what? I'll talk about it during the dry hop question because I'm toying right now with what to do, and I'll talk about it when we get to that question, and then I can talk.
I know what I would do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly what I'd do if I was doing a lager.
We'll talk about it in the dry hop question because then we could talk about my brew before that on the first question.
There's a method to my madness too. I got these questions because they're totally relevant. Most of the time I pick questions that are relevant to me. Like that guy that was talking about ambient cold crashing. I was like, you know what? I have that coming up with those kinds of temperatures. I'm going to throw this question in and it's going to be relevant to me.
That's good. That's good because we have two. And James, we'll both separately say what our ideas are, and we'll see if they're the same because I have no idea what your idea is.
Oh, yeah.
And I have no idea. I have no input. I've never, I don't really usually have much to offer anyway. But so yeah, January's recipe kit. Let me get it back on the screen. Smash the Galaxy. If you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, join any of our recipe receiving tiers, and you will get that delicious kit shipped to you. I will say we had people write in asking how many ounces of Galaxy because they thought we were going to like cheap them out. Like, oh yeah, this Smash one's only going to be, no guys, it's a like people love Galaxy, and if you love Galaxy, this is the recipe for you because it uses a crap ton of Galaxy hops for this.
And I'm not even going to complain that the recipe that we're losing money on the recipe this month.
I'm not good at math. I'm so sorry.
We also didn't realize how expensive they are right now.
I'm so sorry. I'm got this big thing, and you're like, do we have the hops? I was like, yeah, we have some hops. And you're like, okay. And I immediately made the announcement, and then you were like, have you done the math?
We need another 5 pounds.
So anyways, if you go to GoFundMe /Josh Stubing, it would really help out with my family right now to raise money for hops. No, join our Patreon. That's the best way to support the show at any level.
Oh, wait a minute. Does that mean you're So you're paying for the difference in hops then.
Your internet connection is getting bad again. I can't hear you. Anyway, let me mute this channel. Mute the old channel over there. Our Trub Club is available at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, or again, exclusively the membership is still being managed at patreon.com/homebrewhappyhour. And no matter what level you join at, if you join it at all in a premium tier, we appreciate you guys. We couldn't do this without y'all, and your support absolutely means the world to us. So yes, the January kit is that. The January the January giveaway, because we do a monthly giveaway for members of the premium tiers of our Trub Club, is a beer line cleaning kit and a 16-ounce bottle of Sandstep. Start the new year off with good hygiene, guys. Cleanliness is next to godliness or something. I don't know if that's that's the saying, right? That's one saying I didn't mess up.
That's the saying. Yep, you did it right.
I don't want to go down that rabbit running trail hole of bad sayings that I do, like I always do. But it is good to start. It's always good to be clean with your gear. Bad hygiene can ruin a good brew day. You could have everything good, but you didn't sanitize your fermenter well, and boom, your batch is going to suck, period. And Todd's the king of keeping beer lines clean and all that. He can tell you that beer line cleaning kit is a must-have to keep your beer lines clean. Right, Todd?
Hey, I cleaned my beer line. I cleaned all my beer lines last weekend.
Did you?
Yep.
Good. I'm coming up for the entire week, and I gave up on dry January. I don't know if you saw that post. So,
you did a good effort, though.
January 9th, I officially, like that episode of Seinfeld, The Contest. Remember, James? I am not the master of my domain. Yeah, I'm out.
I'd be the first guy walking in with the $5.
You'd have been Kramer. I'm out. Really? I'm out. Yeah. What was impressive about that episode is it took him 3 minutes to get out of the competition. That's impressive, Kramer. Anyway, so also small talk. I have what I think is exciting news. We're launching. When I did the episode by myself that one time, and I never want to do it by myself again, I had a little segment that I just don't like doing it by myself. I had a little segment of craft beer industry news, went over the headlines. It was fun. It was enjoyable. And the feedback was, hey, you should do that more frequently in episodes. It's hard to tie that in to our normal show. So what I'm going to be doing, let me get it up on the screen. There it is. Booze News Weekly. I'm going to give it like a 10-second thing.
I can't see it.
Well, hold on, because I'm about to play the bumper and you're really not going to see it. So here's the bumper right now. Todd, didn't you like that? Wasn't that a good bumper?
I didn't see it or hear it.
It's a video bumper, so that's why I didn't come through the board. It's on my desktop. But I'm thoroughly excited. It's going to be a weekly short form show, publishing on Mondays, covering craft beer news, wine news, spirits, kombucha.
I sent you an idea today.
I got it about the harvest shortage for barley. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I have a big aggregator of news. It's basically, if you ever watched How I Met Your Mother, I'm Sandy Rivers reading the news, but it's going to be fun. And every now and then I'm going to have Todd, James, maybe industry guests come to give commentary. It's going to be, again, short form, like 10-15-minute tops kind of show, just to give industry news and stuff like that, to add more content. 2022 is the year of content for us. We enjoy growing the channel, and we've had a lot of people who do stop in because they're interested in one topic we cover, but they're not homebrewers. They heard something about draft beer lines and the length of restriction, blah, blah, blah. And I'll get feedback like, I'm just not into homebrewing, but maybe I check you out later. So this show is a more catch-all for people to find us. And hopefully, ideally, we convert them into being homebrewers and getting in the community with us. Like, this is my sneaky way of recruiting people to the cult, guys. So I'm doing my part. That'll premiere this coming Monday, which is the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, Monday the 17th. Be on the lookout. It'll publish Monday afternoon. And going forward there, we'll have weekly shows Monday and Friday. So what are you laughing at, Todd?
I got a suggestion.
I just for some reason, Anchorman came into my brain when that's
not very nice. James, I want to hear your suggestion.
Yeah, I think we ought to show members showcase. We got a guy that showed us a picture of his brewing setup. He's got a Brautag, of course. It was amazing. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, and I haven't put it up yet because he didn't come on the show, right? We agreed. He agreed.
He said just contact him, but you guys should see his setup. It's like
I'll publish
man castle.
I agree. You're right. I'll do that. I'll put it on our Instagram first. He didn't give me, I don't know if he does Instagram. That's the thing. I'd emailed him and he replied, said, yeah, use the photos wherever you want. And then I replied like, do you have an Instagram so I can tag you when we post it? And also when's your availability? We want to get you on the show in the Homebrewer Showcase. Because of all the people, look, the Brautag all the ones we've sold, it's a sweet unit already, but this dude's whole setup, not just the Brautag, his brew room, it's stupid nice. It isn't.
Yeah, it's like I showed him pictures of ours, and I was like,
embarrassed. We're like, yeah, no, it's not embarrassing. He obviously really cares about his brew room. It is stupid
really
nice. It is so nice. It is. I'm very envious of his setup, and I think he's a contractor for a living, and because that's what he told me. He goes, "Yeah, I wanted to do it how I would want the perfect kitchen remodel to go," and I was like, "Yeah, that is what the perfect kitchen remodel." My wife would hate that kind of kitchen remodel with a Herm setup in her kitchen, but that is the perfect setup for a kitchen remodel. So we'll have him on hopefully soon. I gave him the option of whenever he wanted to. If he wants to come on next week, we'll have him on next week. So we do have great guests coming up in the future too, industry people. I'm excited for this year. It's already starting off good. Imperial, like I said, I didn't say this yet. They recommitted to sponsoring the show for 2022. Thank you so much to Imperial. So all of our members of Trub Club will get premium liquid yeast shipped out to you with every recipe kit that we ship. If you missed it last week, we are still curating all those Trub Club recipes and fulfilling them in-house. So we're going to be brewing what you're brewing, and these are all the brainchild, basically, of James Carlson. When I say we curate the recipe, I mean James makes the recipe. And so it's a labor of love.
No, it's a collaboration. We all talk about it. I mean,
I talk. Yes, that is true. You're very nice. I talk. and then you do. I say, James, it'd be good. And then you go and make the recipe up. So. And Todd gives input now that I've picked these expensive recipes. I think Todd's going to be more involved in the selection process, so I don't have free reign.
No. I think it's good. I'm very proud of both of you for putting an IPA on there.
Right?
I know it was difficult for you both, but I'm very proud of both of you.
Anyway, we haven't had this segment in a while, so let me get this going. It's time for listener feedback. This week's listener feedback is not a voicemail. I wanted him to leave a voicemail. It's from our buddy Mark, who wrote in through the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Mark wrote, "Hey guys, not really a brewing question, but I have been homebrewing for many years and just stumbled across your podcast 4 months ago while looking for something to listen to on my daily commute. I love the show and look forward to each week's new episode." I think that means he hasn't listened to the first 50. So thanks, Mark, for doing that for us. And he says, "No matter what anyone says, I like the small talk." My man. "I have never watched a video or seen any pictures of the Homebrew Happy Hour crew, so I have no idea what you guys look like. My question is, would it ruin my listening experience by getting a true visual of the three of you, or should I just stick with my perception based on how you interact and talk on the show?" And his interaction. No, watch us, man. Yeah. He goes, "Right now, I picture Josh as a bearded, slightly thicker version of Gilligan from Gilligan's Island."
Wow, he's pretty accurate.
Todd definitely as the skipper, always upset with Josh's antics, but at the end of the brew day, still calling him his little buddy. And lastly, I see James as the
you are my little buddy. I just want to say that.
I don't have the pixelating thing, otherwise I'd give you the finger. And lastly, I see
the hair color is just dead on too.
Oh, it is for you're right. Todd does look like the skipper though. That's what's funny. Lastly, I see James as the professor. Even if he is stuck on a deserted island, he would still find a way to brew great beer using coconuts and bamboo. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait to hear your response. P.S. If you ever get a Marianne or Ginger on the show, I am most definitely going to watch on YouTube. Me too. I would too, man.
Oh yeah, I would watch it over and over again.
Yeah, no kidding. That is pretty accurate. That's why I took it.
That's hilarious.
He described a thicker Gilligan, but I forget though. Gilligan is rail thin, so that's not necessarily calling.
You are kind of a thicker Gilligan.
I need to go back and watch the show because unlike y'all, I'm only 36 and I don't remember
He
it.
nailed the beer.
Oh, God.
too.
It's so funny, dude, because James was talking about it earlier, but we watched it every single day after school. I mean, I always
true.
remember watching Hogan's Heroes, Star Trek. I mean, all those things.
Exactly. You're dead on right. That's
Yeah.
the three that were on in the afternoon.
Wait, so when
Every
y'all
now
were
and then
watching,
you get Sanford and Son, but
all of those-
that's
but-
what it was.
but those weren't
So-
those weren't new, right? When y'all were watching them, they weren't new episodes. Y'all aren't that old for Gilligan's Island. They were reruns, right?
They were all reruns. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I watched Sanford and Son with my wife the other day.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it was
on
one of the
Amazon
first
Prime.
episodes. Yeah, it's such a great show.
Is Sanford and Sons the da 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 da?
Not, 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 not.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, I've seen that in
that's it.
syndication.
Hey, dummy.
I really got into Cheers when it was on Netflix. I think it's on Peacock. I think they own it. I didn't know. That's one of my greatest shows of all time, in my opinion. Cheers is just phenomenal. Gilligan's Island, I need to go back and rewatch. I think, James, you say MASH is up there for you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I need to go back. I've never seen an episode of MASH. I need to.
What?
I know. So
That's
here's what I'm
crazy.
gonna do this weekend. We got a voicemail. We got a few more voicemails from Marty from Omaha. Marty, I'm gonna get me some Jack and Mountain Dew and watch Smash all weekend. That's my plan. I'm quit dry January for my Jack and Mountain Dew.
Did you say Omi from Marty
I
Hall?
did. I almost said that. I almost said Omi from Marty Hall. I told you I quit dry January, man. I've been drinking all day. Anyway, God, I'm losing it. So, with all that out of the way, we do have a 4 questions for you guys for this week's episode.
Yeah.
So, starting with different Mark, using the submission format at homebrew.happyhour.com, he wrote, "Still loving the Trub Club," as he wrote in long letters. It's Trub Club. That's how it's pronounced, Lorena. Trub. Hope the recipes continue with the same quality. Looking forward to winning one of your monthly giveaways too. And in case I forget, in big letters, he wrote Kolsch. That's how you got my attention. He is a member of our Trub Club, by the way. Thank you for that, Mark. So I put the chocolate stout in the fermenter this week. My immersion chiller has been out of order since early summer. Oh, my phone just fell off the thing. Sorry. Now
You want me to read it for you, or?
Be quiet. Quiet you. All right, here we go. I'm starting over from the top, and I'm not editing that out. My immersion chiller has been out of order since early summer, so I don't know when I got this, but I'm backed up on recipes. I've got a brown ale and Kolsch next. Multiple questions here. Hopefully this will make it in your next episode. The imperial yeast that was labeled August, I took out and let sit for about 4 hours with some massaging and shaking before throwing it into the fermenter. I waited 24 hours and it didn't start bubbling. So I grabbed the other ale imperial yeast that I had and added it the next day, started bubbling within 24 hours and still going. I would have thought that it would be more crazy aggressive, but that's not the case. I probably should do starters and get a flask stir operation going. That's the question. It had a question mark. I didn't do the inflection of a question. And get it going. This, and then the next part is I had to skip over the cocoa powder part. He asked, does the kit come with cocoa powder? No, it doesn't. It comes with cocoa nibs. The third part, my other question is about secondary. With the cocoa nibs, it says soak in a few ounces of vodka. I bought a small pocket of some cheap stuff and I assume that is fine. But then you just throw the vodka cocoa nibs in your secondary? I don't have an immersion chiller for secondary, so how do I do this? I was thinking of using a corny as secondary with an airlock lid, but I don't have a way to keep it at 65. Should I rack into a cleaned out carboy and then clean out my big mouth bubbler and transfer back so I can do the secondary in there while keeping the temperatures consistent? I could also put the secondary with the fermenter lid in my kegerator, but temps are obviously a lot colder. Like Todd, I don't ever do secondary, but it seems like this is an essential part of the recipe. He means like James. Todd does secondary frequently. I knew what you meant, Mark. There is a lot going on there. James, where do you want to start? Or Todd,
I think we should have a new rule. I think if you're gonna do a question like this, you should read one question at a time because I don't remember any of them now.
All right, let me start. Okay, his yeast. He had
First question.
The first question. The imperial yeast he used didn't take off until he had to pitch another pouch 24 hours later. He goes, and it's still not aggressive. So do you recommend that he use a starter going forward, or what do you think might have happened?
Well, first and foremost, welcome to my world. That happened to me 2 brews ago. I put in a bunch of packages because we had a bunch around and they weren't out of date, but they were pretty old.
Close.
And I put in like 8 of them or something. I don't remember. Oh, 6. I put in 6. Well, first of all, just so we're completely aware of what an idiot I am, I actually grabbed 7 out of the cooler. I got home and realized I had grabbed 3 different kinds of yeast. So I had one of them was a California, and I took that out of the mix. And so I was left with 4 packets of one lager yeast, 2 packets of another one, and I brewed like 17 gallons of beer. I underpitched it. It was older yeast. Nothing happened. So then I worked on it and waited for it, and then I came back and grabbed some newer yeast. And I was so paranoid at this point that I also grabbed some dry yeast, and I think I put like 11 more packs of yeast between the dry yeast and it. You know what? It took off like crazy after that. So I literally have 4 different kinds of lager yeast in there. And anyway, I tried it the other day, and it tastes great. So it's one of those relax and have a homebrew things, right? It all worked out in the end. I'm fairly confident the dry yeast is what kicked it off. And by the way, none of the yeast was imperial because we were out of all the imperial.
I remember. Yeah.
So I just tell that story because I feel your pain. But as far as the question goes, one of the things I would do, definitely a starter would be a good idea. And James is a lot better at starters than I am, so I'll let him go through that. But one thing that I do when I'm having problems like that, like my problem is in the first set of yeast is I didn't get anything. I didn't get so much as a bubble coming up. So you can't fix that, I don't think, without more yeast. But if it's slow, if it's really going slow, what I tend to do is I use big ferment. So if I take my whatever you're using and I'll give it a good shake, I'll tilt it back and forth and move it around. And sometimes I'll do that. If it's going really slow, I'll do it a couple times a day. And that really I've been able to get down really low final gravity by doing that, even when the yeast seem to be going slow. And James, you're more knowledgeable on this than I am because you do starters a lot more than I do. So I'm going to let you answer the rest of it.
Yeah, you can do a simple starter. There's tools online, you can go into Brewer's Friend and they've got yeast starter calculators that tell you how many cells you need. But I'll tell you what I do. I just take a cup of DME and a quart and just boil it. We're lucky that my stir plate has a heater already on it. So I'll put a flask on it and add the water and get it good and boiling, just so it's good and sanitized. And then I'll put a sanitized piece of foil as a lid and then cool it down in like an ice bath, get it down to at least room temp, and then pitch your packet of yeast. Don't forget your stir stick. You want that sanitized as well. And then just set it on your stir table. If you don't have a stir table, you can shake it a little bit. Every time if you've got it in the kitchen and you walk by, just take it and swirl it around a little bit. And it doesn't take a whole lot to get enough cells, especially with an ale yeast, to get it going. It's not super complicated. It's real simple. Just you want to make sure and you be real clean. Make sure your wort and your water is boiled sufficiently to sterilize it. And it's a simple thing. It's a lot of times you can just hydrate the yeast if it's dry, and that will work too. We've all done that.
Yep. Yeah. Hydration works great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And simple starters are nothing to be afraid about. Just be real careful at how you make sure everything's nice and clean, and you'll have success with it.
Yeah.
Especially if the yeast is older.
Right.
I really wish I'd have done a starter. I was, in fact, that day I was using my Cat of Nines to hit myself for not doing a starter. So.
Now,
shame.
Shame. James, you may have went over this. My computer was making weird noises. I think I figured it out. So I don't know if you mentioned this part or not. Is there a time frame? Like, do you prefer to do the starter like the night before brew day, the morning of? When do you prefer?
24 hours is general the rule of thumb. Depending on how big you want to propagate it to a certain level, it is possible to take one pouch of lager yeast and pitch it to a pitchable amount for what we do as far as a 15 to 18 gallon batch of beer. But then you're talking about several different steps or iterations.
So when you do that, and I've seen you do it before, but I have never done one for lager. You actually kind of feed it, right? I mean,
that's exactly what you're doing. You're just propagating, or you're growing the yeast numbers. So they're eating, they multiply, or they divide, and those eat and those divide. And you just want to make sure that you have enough gravity or sugars in the wort for that to have healthy division of the yeast cells.
But you keep adding them. Like, how often do you add them?
Every 24 hours, I'll do it.
Every 24 hours.
Step.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to take one and you're trying to do, say, 17 and a half gallons like I do, since that will help me, you might actually do that. You could do
4 or 5 days,
about 4 or 5 times. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And prior
the neat thing
planning.
Yeah. The neat thing about the calculators, it'll actually tell you how many steps you need to do.
Okay.
And so it lays everything out. Can't stress this enough. Use a calculator. It's going to save you money and time. So you're not overdoing it or underdoing it. I like to tend to overpitch just a little bit on lager yeast if I can, because I like a good, dry, crisp lager beer.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go to the calculators on Homebrew Happy Hour right now and take a look at that.
We do have new calculators implemented at homebrewhappyhour.com. Right there in the menu at the top, you'll see calculators. You can either click on the title page and it'll take you to the landing, or any of the various calculators. We added those a couple weeks ago, and I never announced it. Thank you, Todd, for jogging my memory.
We don't have that one though, do we?
No, we don't. No, we have the most basic ones of like the ABV, strike water, hydrometer variant.
Primer sugar calculator. That's pretty
sugar.
Cool.
You know how much I use that one. I love the priming sugar calculator. I have it bookmarked.
Oh, you know what? You know what I use all the time is the bricks and specific gravity, because I have one of my.
I know you do, yeah.
One of mine is bricks.
Right.
So
right.
Not hydrometer. What am I trying to say?
Refractometer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got classic. His isn't just reads in bricks, right?
Yep.
And he does the conversion, but he uses the calculator. But on a brew day, notice he tries to make it seem like he knows the math in his head and the conversion. He has his phone right here, and he thinks he's sneaky. And then he'll go, "Oh yeah, that's right at about like we see you looking at your phone, dude. We see you doing the math." And second part of Mark's question. Don't look at me like
I'm just talking about. I mean, it's obvious that I use my phone to convert it.
Whatever.
That's why I was so excited about you putting this calculator on.
Second part of Mark's question, so we could get on to the other questions too, about secondary. Specifically on this chocolate stout, it was to add these cocoa nibs during secondary. And, our recommendation was you can just soak it in a few ounces of vodka. You're right on there. Even the cheap stuff. Alcohol is alcohol in regards to this, right, guys? I mean, like the cheap vodka is not less of a sanitizer than higher dollar vodka, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and you wouldn't need a whole lot, just enough to, just so it's barely covered. I mean,
and he says I didn't look at the instructions. I didn't pull them up yet. It says to just throw them in there, or he's asking, should you just throw them in there? We've had questions.
When I read the question, I thought he meant like, are you supposed to just throw them in separately?
No,
you're supposed to soak them for a while.
He meant soak them, and then would you just throw them in, or would you bag them and throw them in? And we've gone over this before in other episodes where I think we're in agreement that a sanitized bag is the best way of adding stuff in secondary.
For cocoa nips?
Oh no, pardon me. Now for cocoa nibs, I'm thinking for hops. No, cocoa nibs, I guess you don't want to bag them. You want it to just dissolve. For the flavor profile, why you would not bag them, right?
I don't think so, because they would be.
James, what would you do? Save me, James.
I'd use the cocoa nibs.
No, you just pitch them in. You wouldn't bag them. You would just throw them right in, because this is also even if you're doing it in the keg, they're in theory going to dissolve. I mean, it's not going to leave a ton. The amount of cocoa nibs for the secondary isn't going to leave a ton of residue behind, right?
No, nothing that wouldn't clean up with just a little conditioning, just let it set.
Yeah. So, but the beef or the bulk of the second part of his question, Todd, was the beef of it.
I'm laughing because none of us have ever used cocoa nibs in a recipe. So
no. I have with my dad and I have on the.
So what did you do?
My dad did it.
Oh my God!
I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
One of these days, you have to do something yourself.
We brewed at his house, and it was there, and I wasn't there, and he just pitched them.
I actually used both cocoa powder and cocoa nibs.
Oh, I apologize.
Cocoa nibs way over cocoa powder.
So you just threw them in there.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And he like James just said, he chose the nibs over the powder, which is what we did, and that's why we shipped that out with that specific dark side of the chocolate recipe for our Chub Club the other month. And also why you could give me all the grief you want, dude. My dad, it was easier for him to just do it than have me drive 40 minutes down there and help him throw some cocoa nibs in and come back home. Todd,
listen. I realize it's always easier for somebody else to do it. You didn't have to tell me that.
You're not actually. You know what? I like that perspective. That's my 2022 motto. Let's go over his part about secondary real quick because I did read it for the episode. He doesn't have a way. He's talking about he doesn't have an immersion chiller for secondary. I'm not quite following that part of the question. Do y'all have the notes pulled up?
So he's saying that it was broken, basically.
Yeah, it's out of.
Well, not for secondary, but I mean, he was saying it was broken, so he couldn't brew yet. I don't think he was saying he didn't have it for the secondary.
He does. It literally says, "I don't have an immersion chiller for the secondary. So how do I do this?" I don't know if we have there's a loss in translation moment. The secondary, how we do it is transfer into a carboy from our primary, like I'm using buckets right now, put it into the carboy, and then whatever additions I have, I would do it at that point, and then put the bung on top, the airlock, and let it sit in my secondary conditions, which for me, I conflate secondary and cold conditioning to being basically the same thing. When I transfer that carboy, I almost always put it in the fridge. I don't believe that the chocolate stout called for a 65-degree secondary, but he's mentioning that I don't have a way to keep it at 65. I know, James, with certain styles.
Well,
go ahead, Todd.
No, I think there's some confusion about secondary and cold crash. I mean, there's secondary fermentation where you put it in a secondary and you let it go for longer and you let it settle down, and then at some point you cold crash it. I don't know, but 65 wouldn't really be a cold crash. Wouldn't be much of a cold crash either. So I don't really know.
Here's what we'll do.
That means
I think I explained how we secondary. Just transferring from your primary fermenter into glass carboys is how the three of us, when we secondary, that's how we do it. It's always a different vessel. It's almost always a glass carboy, and we almost always conflate it with cold conditioning. Mark, what I would like you to do is leave us a voicemail at Todd's request, explain the situation, and we can address that part of the question in a future episode. That'll get him on the show again, and I'll send you another gift card. So, Mark, thank you so much for submitting the question. Moving on to question number 2, came from our buddy Jeff, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Jeff wrote, "Hey guys, love the show. My question is using whole hops in the keg to dry hop. Will this prevent clogging the line as the hops may float? I've never used whole hops, but I'm getting more curious about it." Jeff, that I brought this question because I'm interested too. James, pellets, we just mentioned with secondary, you put them in a bag to try to prevent them from making a huge mess in your keg if you're dry hopping in the keg and clogging up that dip tube. And we've talked about before, you could use a floating dip tube, or you could cut the bottom little curve off, and that'll help too, not draw from the bottom. Whole hop, the whole cone, would that work?
They're going to come apart. It's going to make a mess. I mean, you can try it. The only thing about, and I could be wrong, I've never dry hopped whole leaf hops because there's some risk of oxidation. I just wouldn't. I don't know. What do you think, Todd? I think that there's.
I've never done it. I've never done it. I mean, I'm sure people do it all the time. I just don't. I'm in Texas. I don't use a lot of whole hops. I'm using hop pellets pretty much 100% of the time. I would love to do it sometime. I mean, I'd love to use whole hops. I mean, obviously I can get them and have them shipped down here, but I just haven't done it. So I'm not the right person to speak to it.
We are in agreement. I can't talk today. I mean, I have a speech impediment. I can't talk any day, but I really can't think of the right word to say. We're all in agreement that the hops would break apart and still cause a mess. Like
they're going to fall to the bottom. I don't think they're not going to float for 7, or however long. Say you're going to do it for 10 days or however long, they're not going to float for 10 days.
Right. I agree with that. And so if the thought process,
if you cool it down, it is possible they'll settle at the bottom and you'll be able to draw off the top. That's possible, but you'd need to get it good and cold before you transfer.
Right. And he's talking about doing this in the keg. So if he did that in the keg and they dropped, then we'd have to go back to like other questions where, man, a floating dip tube is probably your best solution in that case. But if you're only wanting to use the whole ones for the sake of this solution, I think what we're saying is it's probably not going to resolve that part for you. Where resolving that part
in the disconnector,
right, and resolving that part would be using a bag for your hops. That would help resolve it, or like we've talked about in other episodes, cutting the bottom part where it curves, and obviously again the floating dip tube. I've said the 10th time today alone, but it is interesting. I've never thought to use whole hops because my understanding, guys, aren't they harder to keep fresh? Like, I mean, you get them and you got to use them, right? They don't store, like you don't throw whole hops in the freezer and they store well, or in a cooler. Do they?
I think they would store well if they were really well sealed and they had nitrogen in the bag. And especially I think if you froze them, it seems like they would. I mean, again, I don't know anything about it because I've never used them, but that would be my theory for what it's worth. But it's a great time to talk about this, James, because you and I were talking about the other, what I should do. What was your suggestion? I want to hear your suggestion first.
If I was going to use whole leaf hops to dry hop.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was moving on. I thought we covered that, but
okay.
I was saying that I have my needs now. I want to talk about my needs. I got a dry hop, that IPA.
Yeah. Dry hop in a lager.
So what were you thinking?
If I am going to dry hop a lager, I would wait until I did the diacetyl rest. And that's when I would add the hops in, because you're going to get a little more flavor out of the hops at room temp than you will when it's cold. Definitely don't do it before high carousing, because the CO2 will scrub the aromatics off.
I totally agree with that. These dry hops are more for aroma, and my high carousing's long gone for sure. So that I'm fine on that. But everything that I've read, everything I've researched has told me that you don't want to do it too long, but you don't want to do it too short a time. So I've seen some things where people have tried, experimented with it and done it for 2 or 3 days, and then they've done it for like 10 or 11 days, and even done the same batch that way, and then tried it. And that was one of those things where people said you get a lot more aroma if you let it sit for the 10-day range versus the 2-day range. And I don't want it to sit in my primary for 10 days. So obviously you'd say, okay, we'll do it in your secondary. Well, it's hard to shove a bag down into your glass carboy, right? So my thought was to let it secondary and get it where I want it, and then do the dry hops in the keg. To put it in a bag, tie it up so they won't get out and be everywhere, and do it in the keg, and let it sit there for like 10 days before I start drinking it. What do you think about that?
That'd be worth trying. I would just do it at the diacetyl, because the diacetyl is going to be about four. I typically don't want to dry hop at room temp more than 5 days. And then I'll do a cold crash, it'll kind of slow everything down. And y'all know me, I don't have patience. So the cold crashing is just as short a time as I need to before I can put it in a keg. So, I mean, you could be at your 10 days right there.
How would you let it sit? So you would put it in. Yeah, but see, the problem is because I'm going to put it in a secondary. And I mean, I don't know how it would be difficult to deal with that bag in the secondary. So, and I mean, I would be leery to let my beer sit in the I mean, granted, it's an ale. It's not a lager. I'm talking about the IPA. So
Yeah,
I don't know if I would let it.
Different deal for ales than it is lagers.
So I don't know if I would let it sit. And I mean, I should mention that the lager, I already dry hopped it. I dry hopped it as soon as the Krausen was done. I put it in there and it's sitting there. It'll sit there as I cold crash it and everything. Yeah. But I'm talking about the ale.
Okay.
I don't know. One thought was we'll put it in the primary and just let it sit for 10 days. But I don't know if I want it to sit there for 10 days before I put it in the secondary. I don't guess it would hurt anything. Maybe.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about dry hopping a lager, but if I'm going to dry hop an ale right after high Krausen, we're at room temp, I would go ahead and introduce the hops for 4 or 5 days. And then I'd move it over into a secondary. But I've never dry hopped for 10 days on an ale. It's always 5 days. Right. I'm done. If I'm dry hopping, I'll definitely secondary.
And again, that's trying to get it from grain to glass as quick as possible. To enjoy it.
So you would dry hop it for, I kind of screwed up. It's kind of one of those dumb moments where this morning I got here and I was thinking about it and I went, oh crap, I should have dry hopped. I should have started dry hopping 3 or 4 days ago because the high Krausen was done. Now it's Thursday and I was going to keg it. I was going to put it in the secondary this weekend. Right. So what do I do? So I'm thinking about maybe doing it in the keg, but it's going to be super cold though. So I don't know. If any listeners, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that dry hop a lot more than we do. If you have any suggestions, we'd love your feedback on it.
I agree completely because this is not my forte. But you're talking about the Galaxy Smash or the Smash the Galaxy.
Yeah.
You haven't dry hopped it yet.
I have not dry hopped it, and it was probably done 2 days ago. So my choices are either put it in now and leave it. Yeah. And I wanted to dry hop more than 4 or 5 days. So I'd have to leave it to say like 10
till Monday. Yeah.
So that seems like a long time. I want to get it in that secondary.
Right.
Or maybe,
you do a tertiary, go ahead and dry hop in the secondary and then move it over into another one. Because then you can get your 10 days exactly. And then when you're done with your 10 days, then you move it into another carboy and then cold crash it and then keg it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
So you would just throw the hops in there then? You wouldn't use a bag?
Yeah, I just throw them in there.
Throw them in and then do a third one and let it cold crash and all the hops should drop out then.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that.
You could do in your secondary, go ahead and throw your hops in there and let it set at 10 days. And at 10 days, then cold crash your secondary.
And I bet it would.
It'll pack down to the bottom. And then you can either choose to go ahead and keg it, or if you feel like it needs a third, then you can do that. You might even be able to, if it's settled enough and cold enough, you could probably move that into a keg, no problem.
Yeah, I may try that. I should say that. I have only one time have I dry hopped without a bag, and I had hops in my teeth for about a month as I drank the beer, and I was constantly trying to unclog my dip tube, and I thought, So I am very leery to not do it with a bag, but I like the idea. I like the idea of putting it in the second, crashing it, and even if I don't do a third one, I could just move it into the keg. Because one great thing is you can, it would be pretty clear at that point. You move it into the keg, let it sit for a couple of weeks maybe, and at a really cold temperature, and then whatever's in there is probably going to suck up in the first a few ounces. Right?
Yep, that's true. You'll get it in the first pint glass.
I'm on to you now, man. You could have turned this recipe around in a quick time because you're doing dry January and I'm not. You're dragging this out. You don't want me to drink the Smash the Galaxy while you're not able to drink it. I'm on to you. That's what's going on right now.
Well, you were doing dry January too. I was just informed.
Oh, because you don't
fallen off the wagon. I can't help that.
That was 4 days ago. You don't follow me on Instagram? That was 4 days ago.
Instagram. Last time I was on Instagram was
2 years ago.
Probably two months ago.
Oh, 2 months ago. Oh, you're not active.
I have an Instagram account. I used it when we were traveling in Germany together.
That's true. That's it. I'm our soul. That's why y'all don't see the things I write about y'all. It's okay. I'm fine. Whatever.
We are too.
Jeff, thank you so much for submitting the question. This is a good time to remind y'all, if and when I take your question on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Moving on, our third question for this week's episode came from our buddy Adam L., who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Adam wrote, I have a 3-way air distributor mounted in my teaser. One of the shutoff valves with a check valve has stopped allowing CO2 to flow. The other two still work. Is there a way to repair that shutoff valve, or do I need to replace the entire valve? Todd, you're the man on draft plans. What would you and also both of you guys are MacGyvers. Y'all hate to concede. Oh yeah, just replace it. When I say things like that, like, I'll just replace it. You're like, how lazy are you? All you got to do is 10 hours later, and that's all you had to do. And I'm like,
yeah, we dragged out the last few questions, so this one's going to be quick. I promise you. All you got to do, what I would try, there's 2 things I would try, 3 things I would try. Now it's getting longer. First, I would just take your air hose off and take it and put it on the front of the valve. Open up your gate and put it on the front of the valve and open your air to it. And because the ball's just stuck. Sometimes they get stuck. The check ball valve gets stuck. And what happens is maybe it wasn't lubed perfectly, or it's just been sitting for a while and it gets stuck, and push it the other way. Once you get that ball free, it'll probably stay unstuck at that point, and you hopefully won't have the problem again. But a lot of times you can just push it the other direction, unstick the ball, and you'll be fine. If that doesn't work, you can try pushing it like a wire or something, and push from not from the side where the air normally would come in, but the side that the air would normally come out. Try pushing the ball, getting the ball unstuck that way. Third way to do it would be to take the valve out and work it that way. But the problem with doing that is that sometimes you got that brass to aluminum. It's hard to reseal them. I mean, if you do that, you got to put lots of Teflon tape on, and you got to use some kind of a liquid sealer like True Blue or Rector Seal or something like that. So what I would do is to do the first 2. And then if neither one of those work, I'm guessing you bought this from Keg Connection. So call us and we will get you taken care of.
Or if you didn't buy it from us, call us and Todd will shame you. You'll never. Yeah. I
will shame you terribly. No, you can obviously. I mean, I've already told you what to do, so you don't have to call me if you didn't buy it from us. But if you did buy it from us and none of that works, we'll get you taken care of. I mean, it shouldn't fail. It should work for a long period of time. It shouldn't fail. So, but I'm pretty confident if you do those 2 things, you're going to get the ball unstuck and you're going to be fine.
There's a whole. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I should mention, if you have an older air distributor, it wasn't very common, but every once in a while somebody used what's called a duckbill valve, which is basically a little rubber piece, and those can also get stuck. But if it's a new one, it's almost certainly a ball that's in there with a spring, and you can unstick it. If it's a duckbill valve, then you would have to take it apart because you'd have to go from the other direction. But I could I'm pretty confident it's a ball and you can get it unstuck by doing those 2 things.
My Sanke D coupler has a duckbill valve on the gas side. Is that still
almost
common?
All of them do.
Okay, I didn't know if that was still common because I haven't replaced this Sanke coupler in 12 years. It's been
no, they still use the same. They don't use a ball on those. They do use a duckbill valve on those.
Yeah, it's crazy the first time. Yeah, that little weird rubber piece or whatever. But yeah, Adam, thank you so much for submitting the question. There are a slew of these kind of troubleshoot things. We can make a video series and we can make a video a day and have 12 years worth of content because of all the various intricacies of any kind of system or kegging or this whole hobby in general, right? But this is one of those ones where you get calls, not a lot as if the stuff fails, but just helping people understand how they can maintain their whole draft system, right? Because a lot of people are not draft experts, and when it stops working, if it's not a quick YouTube video away, they panic like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And so I like adding those kinds of questions to the show, because like how you explained it, Todd, it is troubleshootable, if that's a word. And more times than not, it is the first two solutions you presented. And like you said, if it's not, talk to the retailer you bought it from, or call Todd and they'll get you taken care of. So moving on. Thank you so much again, Adam, for submitting the question. Our fourth and final question came from our buddy Tilden, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Tilden wrote, love the show. Been binge listening to the entire catalog of episodes. I'm so sorry, Tilden. And James has reinvigorated my love for homebrew. Todd has talked me into kegging, which helps. And Josh always gives me a good laugh. He almost didn't say anything, but I added that part. I have been given a couple of commercial style sanke kegs from a friend that works at a distribution center and was looking for some advice on introducing them to my homebrew setup. Is it just as easy to force carb a sanke as it is a homebrew keg? Currently, all I have is a ball lock setup. Tilden, I have zero experience with sanke except when I borrow one from the liquor store full of my favorite local craft beer. James, no.
Well, I mean, let me mention, I want to say something before we answer this question. The vast majority of sanke kegs are owned by a brewery. So if a friend gave you a couple of them, they may not have been his to give, because they probably came from a brewery that owns those kegs, unless they were decommissioned, sold, marked and said, I don't necessarily like these questions a lot of times, because I don't want to sit here and condone using a keg that was possibly the property of somebody else. So it makes me a little nervous answering these questions.
Let's give the benefit of the doubt that this person at the distribution center got a decommissioned keg, because it does happen that way. Mm-hmm. That's not super, super uncommon. That's probably why they mentioned that they're at the distribution center and they're having these kegs to implement them in. I do know personally people that we know personally that use sanke kegs exclusively, because that's what they were introduced to brewing with, or kegging with, pardon me. We know people who've taken sanke kegs and made kegels. That's not what I'm talking about. I know people who the first kegs they had were scrupulously acquired sanke kegs, and that's what they kegged with and all that. I don't like sanke kegs, messing with them because of the pressure, the spear. Like, having to mess with all that is just dicey to me, where a soda keg is more straightforward. But if you've listened to the show, like Tilden says he's been binge listening, you already know that I'm not a fan of pressure anyway. The only reason I trust soda kegs is because they make sense to me. I can relieve the pressure from the pressure relief valve. I see it's NSF rated. I'm pretty confident it's not going to explode. And when I'm opening it up, I don't feel like it's going to. With sanke kegs and messing with that spear, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you don't depressurize a sanke keg and you mess with that spear, it's a rocket, right? Doesn't it turn into?
No, it's got a safety catch on it.
Oh, okay. See, I'm sorry, guys. Fake news, Josh over here. I'm perpetuating false news. A misinformation is the word of the society today. I have always been maybe irrationally afraid of sanke kegs for that reason, because I thought, oh, you accidentally messed with the spear, it takes your head off or something. And so, and also though, I've never had a lack of availability of homebrew kegs. But if you were given, James, if you were legally given these kegs to use, how do you feel comfortable implementing them with your kit or with your draft system?
They could be kind of a booger to clean, because the mouth is so small. I know most of the people that use those kind of kegs, they have industrial keg washers, so they never really take them apart. They're only taken apart by a keg broker there, where they get them in and they're refurbishing the O-rings and the spears. But for the most part, they stick them. They've got a tool that fixes to the head, the nozzle, and it runs solution through it and rinses it, and it's never taken apart. But you definitely want to know what you're doing when you take one apart. I did say there are safeties on them. They are on the spear, but anything can happen. I know that when you pull the spear out, you have to rotate it. And when you rotate it, the first step is it's going to move up and depressurize, but it still has interlocking tabs that you have to hit another level to get it out. So, it's so much easier to use a ball lock or a pin lock keg.
That's my conclusion too. And Todd, I'll let you answer the question about the forced carb real quick. Would you even try forced carbing in a sanke keg? Again, assume your moral position aside, you got these legally, you have the keg, with a clean heart, it was given to you, you have no liability of a crime committed. Would you use it to force carb, and would it be easy?
Well, I mean, you could force carb it. I mean, you just have to put air in it, so you can. I mean, yeah, you could force carb. You could. I mean, there's a couple of ways you could do it, but I mean, it's if you put a coupler on it and you put air to the coupler on the air side, and you turn the pressure up, then you could force carbonate it.
Right, but the rocking and all that is what I guess I was thinking. Not just setting. Would you do it the same way? Would you change it?
Yeah,
okay.
I would. Yeah.
Okay.
I would probably with a keg, a 16-gallon keg, I would just set it and forget it. The forced carbing could, if you're like me and have a bad back, probably not really good.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a 6-barrel, you could definitely do it. I wouldn't do it with a 16-gallon keg. No. I always say it's like rocking a baby, but that's a heavy baby.
You seem like you would have been a 16-gallon baby, Todd.
It seems like you'd be force carbonating a fat boy at that point. Yeah,
I think
I've seen it done.
I think I'm with you, James. I mean, again, not to discourage anyone in regards to like not using equipment as much as the headache of a sanke keg, but to be fair, I'm lazier than the average bear, but hearing it from James makes me feel better about myself, because I thought my answer, which is similar to yours, I was going to say it first and you'd be like, no, it's not a problem at all. Blah, blah, blah. But hearing you talk, you wouldn't want to mess with it either when it's that much easier with if he just had more ball lock kegs.
Yeah, they're a lot easier to maintain and clean. Parts are cheaper. They're everywhere. At one time, I think Keg Connection was selling, I don't know if they're 6-barrel or 5-gallon sanke.
A long time ago. A long time. A couple. It's been a few years now. I think mainly because Todd, they just weren't selling that good, right?
No, they didn't sell well. I mean, the whole point of them wasn't really for homebrewers. It was for people that needed commercial kegs. We sold some commercially. I mean, I'm sure we probably sold some to homebrewers, but I mean, I would maybe, but we really were selling them for breweries.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that wraps up your question, Tilden. If you're dead set on using them and all that, you can just know what you're getting into. Look up. There's got to be a lot of resources available online, and just be very safe. Be careful. I'm a stickler for safety when it comes to things that are pressurized, and maybe it's because 13 and a half, almost 14 years coming up of being around corny kegs, I'm finally comfortable with them and the CO2 cylinders and all that setup. But sanke kegs, in regards to me using them, not just having them in the house, but me taking them apart and all that, it just creeps me out. But you should have seen me when Todd was airing up a 2-liter with our soda kits, which are perfectly safe, and I'm still a baby cowering in the corner when he's filling up with next to me going, "What's wrong, Josh? What's wrong, man? Were you scared?" Yes, that's why I'm cowering in the corner.
That's what we fill CO2 cylinders here, and
I hate it.
You're filling it to 5 pounds, and it's probably it totally depends on the temperature outside, but let's say it's 800 psi. And it always goes through my mind. I'm like, what if this thing explodes and just comes apart? And I'm like, I'll probably never know. So,
yeah, I'm glad you're not the only one, because I think about it every time I fill one of those up.
Y'all know what I do?
And they're hydro tested and they're very safe.
No, it's safe. Well, it's like at an amusement park. Everything just tested and safe.
I know what you do.
Yeah.
You make Vilver
exactly.
film for you.
I do. I go, hey, Wilbur, necesita aire, por favor. And he goes, oh, ¿dónde está la botella? And I'm like, it's not
I know what you do. You don't do it yourself. There's a pattern here.
Listen, man, Wilbur and I's friendship is going on 13 years strong. That's his part of it, and I buy him lunch. It's a fair trade, man. I am happy with that part of it. All right, anyways, Tilden and everyone else, thank you so much for submitting your questions. Again, reminding y'all, if and when we take them on future episodes, we do give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Gentlemen, that's all I have for this week. I do appreciate y'all's time. I guess actually we're going to have to figure out how to record next week because we'll all be in the same area. But we could do it Zoom. I'll be in my office and y'all there. Maybe we could record from the ranch on Thursday night. Or I don't know your schedule, James. I don't want to commit you to coming to the ranch any of those nights. Do you have Emily this week?
I'm sure we could just do it. We've got plenty of cameras and computers.
Yeah,
We'll just do it here.
I'll just do this one, whatever. Anyway,
I mean, right now I'm doing like 12-hour work days, so you'll still be at the office then. So
of course. Hold on, I think your internet's breaking up. Thanks, guys. I'll see y'all next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast. Get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with your monthly recipe kit when you join our Club Club. Go to homebrewhappyhour.com/club or patreon.com/homebrewhappyhour to learn more. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Tarleson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.